Okay. So, at the end of the day, haven't really made videos a lot lately. Busy with life and other shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, have a busy job, keeps me fucking preoccupied. But here's the deal: every so often, something bites you squarely in the ass, and I guess you just want to experience it with other people. You know. So, at the end of the day, what's going on here is I'm going to be reacting to a video from Anonymous. This video was published today, and it's essentially reminding everyone, warning everyone, whatever, to wake up. And you know, I remember when Anonymous used to be pretty based when they were like trolling the shit out of the Scientology Church. I don't know if they're even really relevant anymore. It seems to me like they're only really useful to serve contrarians in whatever effort they have at appearing more woke in whatever direction, left or right, politically, than like whatever the establishment tells us. And I think of things a little bit more nuanced than this. You know, the establishment isn't necessarily lying because it's the establishment, because their vested interest, or rather self-interest, will often lead to them relying on the truth if it serves them best. So I really don't construct narratives in my mind of, you know, I'm going to believe this thing or that thing based off of like what the majority of people believe. I try and consider any belief or situation on its own merit and go from there. So here's the thing. This video is recommended to me by a hardcore MAGA supporter, man. Like, I don't know if I would call him a friend if you're watching this, buddy. I'm sorry, no offense, but I definitely wouldn't say like I fucking hate the guy or anything like that. He definitely has some shitty opinions, and I love arguing with him about it, frankly. And he hasn't blocked me or anything, so that says a lot about him. But you know, in a good way. But you know, at the end of the day, he wanted me to watch this video, and that's what we're gonna do. So fucking come along with me on this journey, and let's see if this is any fucking good.
Submitting to censorship is to enter the seductive world of the giver. The world where there are no bad words and no bad deeds. But it is also the world where choice has been taken away and reality distorted. And that is the most dangerous world of all.
Access denied.
Censorship is the first act of a criminal government desperate to cover its ill-doings from the people that it is controlling. There's no reason for censorship other than to prevent people seeing things which you do not want them to see, which may reveal your own activities. Censorship is a very good indication of the level of corruption your government has degraded to. When censorship is introduced, it is a very good indication that your government has now reached a point where it is completely out of control and the
Okay, so for me, you know, none of this is wrong, right? Like, for me, this seems to me like we're about to get into some nitty gritty specifics a little later in the video, but already within the first minute, we're setting the tone, right? We're setting the stage. This is theatrical storytelling, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but you know, the whole purpose of this is to prime you, right? We're setting you up by showing you all these images of protesters and talking about censorship or like a universal ideal, which is something like freedom of speech. You know, the thing is that I'm curious to see what censorship is going to be defined as we go into this video. You know what I mean? Like, is it going to be something that's defined as like when the government is saying you can't criticize it in the most literal way of like, I'm criticizing Trump and I get thrown in jail or something like this? I highly doubt that. I have a feeling it's going to be something a little bit more similar to, you know, like Facebook deplatforming you, which is not censorship because that's not the government. You know what I mean? That's a private entity kicking you out of their store, essentially, you know. And especially because recently a lot of people are the ones that are getting banned are the ones that are pushing violent rhetoric. Even like, you know, a lot of my leftist homies like to say, oh, you know, the ban hammer's cracking down on us too. But like, I'm a part of quite a few different like Facebook groups and stuff like that. And the ones that are getting the ban hammer the most are the ones that like openly say shit like, you know, we're going to guillotine, you know, we want to guillotine the liberals as much as the fascists kind of shit, you know, and that kind of stuff. Like, look, you know, I get that you're memeing and stuff like that, you know, and maybe you do believe what you're saying, but at the end of the day, like, it is violent rhetoric. You know, whether or not you think that violence is justified is not even what I'm commenting on. But like, you know, this banhammer is happening universally because violent rhetoric led to this specific action in the Capitol a couple of weeks ago, where people were bringing pipe bombs and guns and storming the Capitol. Like, you know, there's some reports that people were within like 100 feet of like Mike Pence. You know, like people had to be led away from the Senate chambers, where people were being held in defense. Like, you know, I don't know. Like, it's like, this seems like a no fucking brainer to me that these companies react this way because they don't want to be held liable from the government of like encouraging this kind of behavior, you know? So at the end of the day, like, it's a simple like market logic, you know, discussion that they're, or, you know, decision that they're making, you know what I'm saying? But that being said, like, what are they going to define censorship as, right? Is it going to be like a company kind of like acting in their own self-interest to like maintain their profit margins? So they're getting rid of people that are like straight up using their platform to organize like violent fucking protests and stuff like this? And encouraging violent rhetoric, which did lead to, you know, quite an explosive action. You know, ultimately probably not like a very effective one, but still, you know, it was pretty explosive and incendiary, and you know, there was a lot of risks involved, and there were definitely people there who like were just kind of caught in the heat of the moment, and then, but there were also people there like the guy that brought like the flexi cuffs, and people that like had maps of like the fucking underground like tunnels and hallways and shit, like all that weird shit. Like, there's people, and like, again, people like there's a guy that brought pipe bombs. Like, there were people there that were trying to fucking hurt someone. So like, you can't expect there to not be a reaction here, you know? So what's this gonna be about? You know what I'm saying? Like, what are we doing here? You know, I'm curious. I generally, let's keep going, but I have a feeling that we're gonna be whining about censorship in like the most non-fucking useful way of discussing like government power versus corporate power versus like people power. But you know, I could be wrong. Let's find out.
Politicians have backed themselves into a corner so far with their criminal actions that they now need to introduce what is essentially thought crime, which is what censorship is.
That is hilarious that I literally was making the point of what they were going to say. I have not watched this video, okay? This is literally first time I've watched this video. I am not even fucking lying. This is fucking hilarious to me. So no, censorship is not this, okay? Like, censorship is the state, okay? And like, as much as we use Facebook and YouTube and all these social media platforms and stuff like that, they're not the state. And at the end of the day, like, they're not the only tool for communication. Like, if I really wanted to set up message boards, Discord servers, these are very easy to do. It's so easy to set up this shit, even on the internet, without using any of these platforms. The problem is that a lot of the people that are bitching and moaning about this kind of stuff, frankly, are not tech savvy. They don't understand how to use the internet, really. You know, they just know how to use these platforms. And these platforms don't have to allow us. You know, we're useful to these platforms as long as like advertisers are willing to pay for metadata and like well, not metadata, but like personal information for like, you know, targeted ads and the likes of this. You know what I mean? Like that's what it's useful for. It's not useful for like letting freedom be a thing or like letting you speak or whatever. Like, this is a nonsensical platitude that makes no sense within the context of like free market economics and how these social media companies operate within that, you know, within that system. So no, I don't agree with this. I don't think that, you know, banning you for thought crimes off of Facebook is the same thing as censorship. That's garbage. But let's keep going. Let's see maybe if they elaborate a little bit more on their, you know, point.
And of course, the governments always do this in order to cover up their own activity.
Okay, wait, now we're talking about the government. Hang on, did I miss something? Let's rewind this here. Politicians are back. Hang on. Your government has now reached a point where it is completely out of control, and the politicians have backed themselves into a corner so far with their criminal actions that they now need to introduce what is essentially thought crime. Oh, okay. So they are talking about the government. Okay, well, what is the government doing?
Is what is essentially thought crime, which is what censorship is. And of course, the governments always do this in order to cover up their own activities.
God talks too slow for me, but...
You know, censorship is introduced not to cover up that which is dangerous or harmful. It's introduced in order to prevent people from ever asking questions that need to be asked. And governments introduce censorship because they do not want their actions questioned.
True.
That's just the way it is. And, you know, when the government deems itself to be worthy of dictating what people can or cannot look at, what people can or cannot say.
Okay. The priming is getting a little annoying, alright? We're already almost 2 minutes into this fucking video. Okay? And there's a point has not been made. Censorship is bad and governments use it to quiet dissent. Cool, dude. Did you also know that water makes up 70% of human bodies? Did you know that? That water makes up 70% of like your overall body mass? Did you also know the sun is a star? Fascinating stuff.
What people can or cannot think, then you have really reached the end of any type of real society at all. In such a situation, there can be no expression of real humanity, there can be no development of genius, no development of new ideas, no thinking outside the box at all. The introduction of censorship is essentially the introduction of thought crime. It is people...
Oh my god, okay, so we're repeating points now. Okay, so... Again, like, all of this stuff is common sense shit. Like, is this what Anonymous has been reduced to? Saying obvious things?
Dictating what you can think, what you can look at, what you can't look at, what is deemed safe for you, what is deemed unsafe for you. Censorship is someone telling you what you can or cannot think.
Okay, no, that's not what censorship is. Okay, so censorship is specifically, it has a specific function, right? Like, you know, if I were to, for example, I have a kid, right? I engage in forms of censorship with my kid or around my kid all the time. Like, I've already had, like, the talk, you know, with her and stuff about that because I caught her, you know, doing some shit she shouldn't be doing on the internet, you know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, like, you know, that's not something that I was willing to censor from her. But at the same time, like, I'm not going to be, like, showing her extremely violent videos and stuff like this. Like, I'm not trying to have her watch, like, fucking cartels beheading people and shit like this, right? Like, at the end of the day, like, that's something I will censor because I don't want her to see that shit when she's so young. It's just traumatizing, you know what I'm saying? That's just my view as a parent, personally. That's not me saying you can't think this. You know, that's me feeling like I'm protecting you from seeing something that, frankly, I don't think you're old enough to be able to really comprehend what's going on. Because when you see really strong images like this, like, I want it to invoke an emotion, you know, and I want you to be old enough to not only understand, like, what you're feeling, but old enough to interpret what you're feeling in such a way to where you can understand the context of the situation or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Essentially, I don't want it to be something you're glorifying or, like, nihilistically enjoying for whatever edgelord bullshit reason, you know? Like, I want it to be something you can process and discuss. So that's the main reason for my censorship now. So, you know, my censorship is temporary in a lot of ways. You know, like, there's an expiration date to it. You know, that's not me controlling their thoughts. Like, yeah, I'm making the decision for them. Like, but this idea of, like, it's me dictating what she can think. Like, yeah, I'm dictating what she can look at, but that's not the same thing as dictating what you think. You know, I am deeming that it's unsafe. But, I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, is this video anti-OSHA? Like, what? Like, are you saying that those kind of regulations in, like, construction or... Like, because, I mean, I've worked jobs, like, in factories. You know, I've worked jobs that, like, take you to construction sites and shit like that. And, like, if someone's going to cut a corner, they're going to fucking cut a corner. Like, you know, like, so you're saying that you're against, like, someone that is regulating that behavior to make sure that they're not cutting corners? You know what I'm saying? You know, maybe we can make an argument that, like, OSHA is not very effective. That's a fair, you know, you can probably make, you know, certain arguments around there. But, like, my response to that would be to, like, better fund them, you know, or give them more power, because what they do is a universal good, especially in my country, in America. You know, but, like, again, like, these are, it's like it's tying a bunch of kind of separated ideas together under the word censorship, because no one likes that word. Like, at the end of the day, it's... You're using a buzzword, my dude. Like, you know, you're saying censorship. And then, like, rifling all these other things. And again, this is sticking with the original point that I'm making, that we've been 2 minutes in this video now, and we're priming you. We're priming you for something. So, I say censorship. First, I talk about the First Amendment, you know, how important that is. How bad censorship is to that, because we're talking about individual freedoms and civil liberties and stuff. All good shit. All good shit that we all agree with, right? But then we're talking about, we're dictating to you what can and cannot be done. Okay, like, okay, you know, maybe that's happening. Like, who am I? I mean, I'm not a genius. You know, maybe that is happening. But when you're saying, because censorship, even though that's not really we're using this very loosely because they've not defined a specific instance of the censorship occurring. But, okay, censorship happening doesn't necessarily mean that someone's controlling you. I think the controlling would happen first, and then censorship would be a part of it afterward. But right now, we're jumping 5 steps ahead of this argument here of, like, censorship is controlling you and all this shit. And we've not even established, like, what the fuck they're talking about when it comes to censorship.
What you can think, what you can look at, what you can't look at, what is deemed safe for you, what is deemed unsafe for you. Censorship is someone telling you what you can or cannot think, and it's someone else making that decision for you. The introduction of censorship in any society spells a very dangerous time for that society, because history has shown us that first comes the censorship, then comes the disappearances, then comes the imprisonment. Yes, censorship is not acceptable in any progressive society. It's not beneficial to a progressive society. It's not beneficial for human development. It doesn't help anybody except those in power who have a lot to hide.
True.
And more people need to speak out about this, because approving of censorship of anyone, approving of the silencing of any voice, is approving of the censorship of yourself. That's the way it works. If you're willing to silence one voice, then you're okay with your own voice being silenced.
No. That's just not true. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry, but this is children's logic. Like, if you're okay with, like, being an authoritarian toward a situation or towards someone, I would argue that it means more so that you're not okay with that happening to you. Otherwise, you wouldn't try and exert this control. I mean, come on, this is like I don't know. I don't know what this Kiwi is talking about. But in all honesty, like, to me, it's just very bizarre. It's bizarre, like 8th grade level, like schoolyard logic here. Like, this is not. I don't know. Like, we've not even, again, we're 3 minutes in here. We've not really established what the fuck the censorship is. We're talking about, like, how, you're okay. First the censorship comes, but I was not a censorshipper. And then they came for me and no one was there for me, or whatever the fuck, like, I don't know. Like, this seems to me to be very alarmist, but we've not gotten to a point. Let's get to a point, please, for fuck's sake!
And that might be okay in your situation in the world today, but what if something happens, you actually see something wrong and you want to say something about it and you can't? What do you do then? That's the thing, folks. People don't realise what censorship really means on a personal level, and they need to think about it.
Okay, I think everyone understands what censorship is on a personal level. They clearly understand what censorship is on a personal level. That's why you keep saying the word, because it has such a negative connotation. Like, it's very clear to me that the whole purpose of this video is to be like, censorship bad, and then there's gonna be like, that's why you should hate Biden or something, that's why you should hate the Democrats, or that's why you should hate Facebook, or whatever, And I'm okay with talking shit about these entities, Democrats, Biden, Facebook, all this stuff, but at the same time, like, you need to root it in real problems. Like, this harkens back to, when fucking Obama was in power, bro, and I was literally fucking talking with, like, really any Republican or libertarian type. Well, libertarians not so much, but definitely with Republicans, evangelical types and stuff like this. And I would be criticizing, like, John McCain or Mitt Romney or whatever, or just, like, Republicans in general. And they would be like, oh, yeah, well, if you care about, like, fucking war so much, then why is, like, Obama doing this in fucking Libya and all this shit? I'm like, okay, yeah, that's bad. That's a bad... Fuck Obama for that. You know what I'm saying? Like, why is this like, is it such a team blood sport that, like, you can't see past? Like, you think I like Democrats? Dude, like, the only reason why I even participate in Democratic primaries is because my politics is universally reviled. I hope I'm using that word right. It's repulsive to Republicans. Like, there's no way I could convince Republicans of many of my economic viewpoints. Democrats, though, on the other hand, are just, they at least listen to you more. Not all of them, of course, but, definitely not leadership. But at the same time, like, there's work that can be done there. You can convince people. Especially, like, when they get disillusioned with how, like, frankly, Obama ran things, especially toward the end. And I imagine, depending on how well Biden does... I'm not going to be so, doomer-pilled on Biden just yet because, he's not even in power yet, but, yeah, and, like, I'm sorry, like, it's just, this is childish logic to me, So, but the thing is like this is all fucking, you know, masturbatory nonsense so far.
People don't realise what censorship really means on a personal level, and they need to think about it. You know, freedom for all is freedom for all, and freedom of speech is the most basic foundation of freedom. Without that, you have nothing. So this level of censorship simply is not acceptable. Not under any type of government. Doesn't matter who they are, because freedom of speech is essential to any functional society. Now, this gives the government the ability to be able to do anything, and it removes us of the ability to be able to sound any warning bells.
So yeah, this is true that freedom of speech is integral to any progressive society. A vibrant democracy obviously relies on freedom of speech. So I don't think anyone questions this. But I mean, we have to, you know, there's still limitations, right? Like, you I'm sure you've heard the examples before, right? Like I can't like violently threaten you with like a firearm, or even like with just my bare fists. You know, I can't say like I'm gonna kick your ass, because that's not freedom of speech. That's a threat. Like I'm threatening you. You know, I can't yell bomb on an airplane, right? I can't yell fire in a theater. You know what I'm saying? So this is obviously like, yes, it's true that freedom of speech is integral to any society, but the problem I have with this kind of propagandistic kind of narrative storytelling, which is what this video is so far been 4 minutes in now with no fucking point, other than censorship bad. Is that, like, there's no nuance here. Like, yeah, we got a lot of cool stock images of people walking in streets and fucking, ooh, someone's got censorship written on tape over their mouth. Scary shit. But at the end of the day, like, is this a criticism of, like, the Chinese government? You know? Because, I mean, frankly, that's a tired criticism, right? Like, we know that's not good to do that to people's speech. We know this. So what's the point? And why is a MAGA chud sending this to me?
It completely derails any effort for whistleblowers in the future. It doesn't matter how corrupt any organisation, any government organisation, any type of situation is, nobody will be able to blow the whistle on it, because if they do, reporting the crime will be classed as a crime.
Which already, that's how it is right now, but yeah.
The whole political system, the whole financial system, all of it is such a puppet show, and they're heading us to this really dystopian reality. And it's a spiritual test. What's going on here is a spiritual test, folks. It's a soul test. I mean, the way to get through this is to be in the correct energetic state. But the trick is to be in the correct energetic state through this, with everything that's coming, because it's a soul test. And ultimately, you're going to come down to a point where you have to make that choice.
Oh my god. The way this guy talks makes me want to neck it, bro. Okay, so, like, can we just read this? Like, the whole political system, the whole financial system, all of it is such a puppet show, and they're heading us to this really dystopian reality, which, you know, in a lot of ways, I don't disagree with this. It's treated like a puppet show, but I think a big problem, especially in America, and why American democracy is, frankly, with all due respect to people in the world, it's more important than other democracies, is because the effects of our democracy positively or negatively affect other democracies on the planet. So, you know, the fact that people in America in particular are so disengaged from the process is going to lead us to a dystopian reality. I don't disagree with this. But I think the fact that they think it's a puppet show contributes to that apathy more so than it actually being a puppet show. You know what I'm saying? Let's see. I mean, the way to get through this is to... Okay, so this phraseology annoyed me. I mean, the way to get through this is to be in the correct energetic state. But the trick is to be in the correct energetic state through this. Because it's a soul test. And ultimately, you're going to come down to a point where you have to make that choice yourself is... to whether to stand your ground. Wow, okay, yeah. The way that's... Okay. But yeah, like, that's just circular speaking. That's annoying. Like, dude, you're just like... This is a 4th grader, or no, this is like a college student, right? Where like they're like, fuck, I fucking forgot to write that paper, fuck! And they're just like, all right, how many words does it have to be? 800 words? Okay, I mean, the way to get through this is to be the correct energetic state, but the trick is to be in the correct energetic state through this. I'm sorry, like, I'm unimpressed by this, 100%. Anonymous, what happened?
The trick is to be in the correct energetic state through this, with everything that's coming, because it's a soul test, and ultimately you're going to come down to a point where you have to make that choice yourself as to whether to stand your ground. And a lot of people are just standing it now. A lot of people are just saying, no, we're not going to do this anymore. And I don't think they're going to win. I don't think the powers that believe they be have any hope of pulling off what they want to do, I think too many people are going to push back. I think too many people are already. I think they've moved too fast. I think they've had to move this fast out of necessity. I don't think they wanted to, but they have to.
But move too fast toward what? What are you talking about? Move too fast toward what? Like, are you talking about, like, the Patriot Act? Because, bro, it's been 20 fucking years, right? And, like, what the fuck has America done since then? We keep reinstating it. We've given more powers to the executive branch to basically make the president a kingmaker, a dictator of military policy in a way that was never even, you know, seen in the original, like, intent of the Constitution, which I know a lot of people who talk like this give a fuck about, you know. Like, I don't understand. Like, is imperialism gonna happen? Because, fucking newsflash, that shit's been happening forever. Like, for at least the last, 500 years. Right? Like, America's just the next step of imperialism. Our type of financial imperialism where, we lock people into these type of trade deals and trade agreements and stuff like that, and then enforce it through the IMF and all this shit, that keeps, like, wages while rising compared to, how they were, let's say, 50 years ago, but it keeps them suppressed compared to the rest of the world, and it allows wealthy nations to profit off of the backs of this cheap labor and resource exploitation. Like, that it's still happening. It's not gone away, and it's getting worse. So what the fuck is this criticizing? Like, again, this reminds me of, like, how I used to think about politics when I was, like, a fucking Republican, Like, when I was a right-wing libertarian, even. Like, to me, it's just so simple. It's simple to the point to where all the words only makes it seem pedantic. Like, the purpose of this video is rhetoric. It's not even really to, like, get you to agree with an idea. It's just feeding you ideas you already agree with, and then kind of, like, spinning this kind of narrative of, like, yeah, the government is this big evil bastard, and it's gonna do this. They're moving too fast to try and do this, but they won't. We'll push back. It's so vague. And it makes sense why, like, anyone who is, like, disillusioned politically to where, like, essentially they only got their political news from, like, people they agree with, Facebook memes, Twitter feeds, not people who actually just, like, take fucking 5 minutes and just research a topic. You know what I'm saying? Like, read news articles, vet news articles, learn how to fact check, shit like this. They're just being told what they like to hear. Simple as that. Like, and I'm unimpressed by this. We're 50% through this video, and I am just thoroughly unimpressed with it.
Just tell you to prepare for what's coming, folks. But keep a positive attitude through it all. You can't think that they've won. You can't think that it's all just a foregone conclusion and things are going to go to where the powers that believe they be want them to go, because such is not the case at all. I already reckon they've moved way too fast, and I think they've done so out of necessity, because they know the wheels are falling off. They know they're in trouble. They know that there's a lot of people waking up, a lot of people pushing back. I mean, the way they've done this, they've red-pilled most of the world themselves. So many people are getting it now. So many people are speaking out about it.
Dude, okay, so on 2 levels, I fundamentally disagree with this. So, first point. Hang on. You can't think at all, foregone conclusion. Already reckon they've moved way too fast. I think they've done so out of necessity because they know the wheels are falling off. They know they're in trouble. First of all, the people in power are not a they. I just don't, this is stupid. Like, they're competing groups for power. Like, they don't have the end goal, we're all gonna be rich. Like, that's not their end goal. They give a fuck about themselves, and that's it. Like, at the end of the day, they care about them. They don't care about you. They don't care about fucking really anything other than their own self-interest. I genuinely believe a majority of these oligarchs and capitalists, if given the choice between keeping all of their wealth and murdering their whole family, are keeping their wealth. So at the end of the day, I don't think they know the wheels are falling off. I don't believe that. I think some of them know this, but I don't believe that they understand the gravity of the situation. I'm reading a book right now, or I'm finishing up the book. Here, I'll get it. Okay. It's called The Uninhabitable Earth by David Wallace Wells. This book is miserable. I highly recommend it. Basically, the way that we think about climate change is wrong. And not only are we past the point of no return in so many respects, we're probably not coming back from it. So, not to get all doomer fucking black-pilled on you or anything, but at the end of the day, I don't think they understand this. I don't think they do. I think some of them do, but not all of them. I really do think they think of the market as like the be-all, end-all natural state of things. And they're going to maintain that hegemonic power at all costs. And then the second point is that there's a lot of people waking up, a lot of people pushing back. The way they've done this, they've red-pilled most of the world themselves. So many people are speaking out about it now. Now, I do agree that the world, people all over the world, well, even though that's kind of like way too general. That's not necessarily true. Excuse me. I do think that generally speaking, people are like being filled with this kind of like anti-corruption rage. But Michael Brooks talked about this, rest his soul, very eloquently. And he made the point of saying, be wary of leaders that utilize anti-corruption politics as a platitude. Essentially, there's nothing wrong with being anti-corruption. But you need to be specific, right? Like, if I'm criticizing corruption when I'm talking about, like, I don't know, I can't think of an example off the top of my head. I don't really give a fuck to list off a million examples to prove my intelligence or whatever. But like, I want to be able to actually like discuss these issues in a way that's like coherent, and at the end of the day, like, what matters is we're talking about something that's real. Right? We're talking about something that is like what's happening. You know what I'm saying? If we're talking about like corruption as this nebulous concept, then you could attach corruption, quote unquote, to anyone that is in opposition to whatever the establishment is. So if you want to be specific of like, hey, I don't like how you have this type of, energy policy, and you also take this much money from like the natural gas and oil industries, I think this conflict needs to be resolved. And we can stop, like corporate funding of elections, or, there's a number of reasons, like, and super PACs and everything like this. But like, that's a specific topic. It's not me being like, corruption is bad and you have it, we need to get rid of you. You know what I'm saying? And I think the fact that this is spoken so vaguely means that really anyone can agree with it. Like, what you think is corrupt doesn't necessarily mean the same thing as what I think is corrupt. And the fact that this person, anonymous or whatever, is talking about it in such vague terminology, I think they understand this. I think they genuinely understand that, like, what they're saying is just a platitude. It's rhetoric. Right? Like, what if they red-pilled the world up? Dude, like, the internet is causing more misinformation than the abundance of, like, factual truths. Like, whenever I get into a debate now with someone who's a MAGA chud, or really anyone that, like, I disagree with on political issues, we're having a discussion about what the facts are, not a discussion about what to do with the facts. All the time. Like, it's understandable to kind of, like, oh, hey, we just learned a whole bunch of new shit about this concept. Now we need to rediscuss this concept because we learned new information. That's a good thing to do. Instead, it's constantly being like, oh, well, the Capitol being stormed by people that were MAGA wasn't actually that. It was Antifa dressed up as MAGA to make MAGA look ridiculous so that they could institute the fucking New World Order through censorship on Facebook. I don't know, man. Unimpressed with this video still.
So many people are getting it now. So many people are speaking out about it now. So many people are just not prepared to do what we're told anymore. And that's a really good thing to see. All, of course, because of the media enablers. That's how they're able to do it. And we've got to stop pussyfooting around with these people, folks. We really do. We've got to realise that we can't be nice about this anymore. We've got to start calling these people out.
Who's these people?
Important time in history, and we've got to keep pushing back because the people that are doing this, they don't take days off. And that's why we shouldn't be taking days off either. Those of us who are awake, we need to keep pushing this, folks. It's a very, very important time. People really don't see what this system has the potential of becoming and really what it's going to lead to, and it's imperative that they wake up to it. It really is. You know, and trying to find ways to combat this, really it all comes down to getting the information to people, and this is where the mainstream media has truly failed on the most phenomenal scale ever witnessed in media history, I would suggest. I mean, the mainstream media is so far off target in what they've been reporting on the news. I mean, they've always been bad, you know, and the media was constructed in order to be the government watchdog. The media was constructed in order to blow the whistle on government misdoings and to tell us, we the people, what is actually going on in the world. But all the media does now is feed us what the government tells them they should feed us. And it is so...
This is just not true. Like, if this was true, then even, like, Fox News wouldn't be going against Trump on, like, basic issues. Like if this was true, Fox News would be taking to, like, don't get me wrong, they have, like, certain people that, like, paid credence to the whole, oh, we need to ask questions about election integrity kind of bullshit. But, like, even Tucker Carlson was fucking conceded that, like, Trump lost, you know? Like, and Fox News has no incentive to cater to the liberal establishment within the American political sphere. They make all their money not doing that, you know? Like, I'm sorry, like, this is a child's view of how, like, censorship and, like, the media's relationship with people work in this country. It's just a child's view of it. The media is not the media. It's a bunch of different organizations that have a vested self-interest in maintaining their profit margins and maintaining economic power. All right, and at the end of the day, being, like, state-endorsed would give them a lot of power. But frankly, like, just, like, showing the shit show of reality does the same thing. All of these media companies have seen a rise in their profits ever since Trump came into power because people love watching the reality TV shit show that is American politics. Especially in America. You know? And criticizing it, agreeing with it, really, like, at the end of the day, like, it's not some nefarious, like, 10-point plan that the masters of the economy or whatever are implementing. They're not that smart. They care about this quarter's profit margins, revenues, and costs. Like, that's what they care about. You know? Like, the reason why MSNBC made a concerted business plan effort to include more, like, establishment Republicans on their programming is because they saw how rich Fox was, and they wanted some of the money. Like, if they were really driven by ideology, do you really think they would do that? Their ideology is money. Their ideology is profit. Their ideology is a goddamn business trying to stay, like, in business. A publicly traded fucking corporation. Like, it's not a they. It's a bunch of idiots trying to make money. Like, come on.
An absolute parody of reality, it really has. There's no truth anywhere in the mainstream media. But it is getting quite desperate, folks.
I mean, but also, again, that's not true. There is plenty of truth in the mainstream media. There's a lot of spin, but spin isn't necessarily the same as a lie, you know. Oftentimes, you can maybe make the argument that the majority of it is like a lie of omission. That's the majority of spin is a lie of omission. Sure, okay, I'll grant you that, but fucking hey, at the end of the day, like, if it benefits them, they'll show the truth. If it benefits them, they won't. Like, what's the common denominator here, people?
I mean, it's important that people really do pay attention to these things, and it's ridiculous, folks. We need to start taking things into hand ourselves, and we don't need violence or anything like that. All we need to do is make our voices heard. You know, be prepared to talk to your neighbours, be prepared to talk to your community, be prepared to go and make a bit of a noise at public gatherings and a bit of a noise at some of these government meetings, and let them know that we're not happy, let them know that we're going to start taking action against them, and that we've figured out what's going on.
Okay, but, like, take action against them for what? Talk to your neighbors and your community about what? Like, when I engage with my local community, like, you know, and I've done like some, you know, minor charitable stuff, like, you know, volunteered at places here and there, or donated to places, and, you know, I've worked with like local campaigns and done like canvassing and stuff like that. Like, you know, at the end of the day, like when you're going out and you're doing these things, first of all, very high failure rate, right? Like, you don't win everyone over. In fact, you win a minority of people. Okay, so one, prepare yourself for that. Two, a big reason for this is because you're going there for a stated goal, right? And like, you know, in the case of like with me canvassing, for example, I was going and talking to Democrats, canvassing for Bernie Sanders, you know? And you would still lose people. or like you wouldn't win people, you know? Like, this is goofy. This is goofy to me. You know, this kind of thinking is what made the storm of the Capitol a couple of weeks ago so like hilariously unorganized when they actually stormed. Because yeah, they're mad. Yeah, they want to fight the power, fight the man, and all that shit is really good in the moment. You know, you fucking feel it in your bones. But then they storm in and they're like, now what? They take some selfies. They steal some shit. They rifle through people's work and offices and stuff like that. Again, some people were there to be violent, but like the majority of people that were there were just like fucking having a temper tantrum. They were just mad. And because they're just mad, they're not mad like at something. They're like mad at Nancy Pelosi. Why? Because she's taking away my freedom. Okay, but how? Because she's a liberal. You know what I'm saying? She's censoring me. How? Like, anytime you try and fucking pin one of these people on like these positions, they are always either say like, you know, they end the conversation, you know, and dismiss what you're saying, or call you like a liberal, you know, a cuck or whatever, which, you know, whatever. Or they say that like you're being dishonest, you know, that you're being disingenuous when you're talking about these issues, you know, that asking questions and getting to the root cause of why they believe what they believe is somehow a trick that you're doing to them. And I think oftentimes the reason why they feel that way is because they've never taken the time to think about this shit themselves. They watch videos like this and they go, yeah, the man is bad. They are trying to hurt me. And they don't think about it beyond that.
Yeah, all of this has been planned, all of this has been long orchestrated. You never really look at the bigger picture, and I really do wonder what on earth is really going on here. But that's what appears to be happening, you know. And when you see that the underlying fabric of this society is based on fear, I mean, all of it is based on fear. Fear-based mind control, it's the whole thing, folks. Just the way we have to worry about survival so much and gathering the paper we need to pay to be alive and getting these little pennies to put in our money boxes and, you know, in fear of the concrete jungles we live in. Everything about this system, this whole reality is an emotional mirror. And this is how it works, folks. And when you really see this and you begin to truly...
You know, just because you feel like a big change needs to happen doesn't, one, mean that change is going to benefit everyone equally. Two, it doesn't mean people are going to agree with you on what that change is. And three, frankly, I wouldn't be surprised, you know, if there were changes that benefit more people overall, but like come at a cost to you personally that you would be against. You know, like, we're in a vastly complicated, intertwined global ecosystem of power relations, economic dynamics, and just straight up dynamism. Like, it's constantly changing, it's constantly flowing, it's constantly growing, it's constantly shrinking. It's constantly adapting to the world around it. It's constantly adapting to the consequences of our actions as a whole, as an individual. Like, as individuals. Like, it's so complicated that making blanket statements like this is fucking nonsense. It's idealistic nonsense. And again, I want to make a point here. The point of this video is still not clear. Like, censorship is bad. Okay, yeah, we agree with this. Censorship is being used by the government to quiet dissent against the government. I mean, in some governments, sure, like in America, I mean, not necessarily. Like, you know, in the case of like whistleblowers and shit like that, very true, very true. But like, I can still criticize my government. You know, I think, and then they're saying, well, people are waking up. I don't know, man. Whenever I criticize my government, especially like under the Trump government, I have a bunch of trumpets fucking telling me, oh, well, you know, you just don't like Trump or whatever, winning, MAGA, whatever. And then under Obama, it would be kind of the same thing. Like the first question I would always get from someone who really liked Obama is, well, you know, Bush was bad, or you know, McCain is bad, or Romney is bad. It's like, yeah, just because I'm criticizing the government doesn't mean I'm saying those things are good. So I don't know. Like I feel like misinformation is potent, and the nefarious nature of misinformation is that, dude, you think you're good. You think in your head you got it mapped out to where it makes sense, and frankly, you don't. You know. Anytime I hold a position, I'm always holding it from the position of like, how can this be proven wrong? I think listening is a lot better than talking in circumstances like that. You know. And as I'm listening to this, not only am I learning nothing, it's just empty platitudes.
We could literally change the world that quickly. 3 seconds, we could all be doing something different. Is that going to happen? No, because there probably won't be this worldwide epiphany. But that doesn't mean it isn't possible that we can do this. That doesn't mean that isn't how powerful our minds are, because our minds are incredibly powerful.
Not really.
And this is why technology isn't even really the threat. You know, the scrying mirrors and this whole smart system isn't really the threat. It's our inability to deal with it in the right way. It's our inability to love ourselves and to love each other through this. Now, something that's really happened with the internet, by giving everybody a soapbox and allowing everybody to have an opinion, there's been an incredible amount of hatred and trolling and energy harvesting from people online. If we can just see this in ourselves and see this perfection in ourselves, then all the barriers break down with other people and we can change the world in a day. The real way out of this system is for people to simply love each other, respect each other, allow other people to think differently. Don't tolerate what these governments are doing. Don't tolerate for voices to be silenced, even if you don't like what someone's saying. All this censorship and all this stuff, it's not acceptable, folks. And just calling this for what it is, but doing it not from a state of aggression, but doing it from a state of love and doing it from a state of respect and steadfastness. That's how to do it, folks. We've got to learn how to simply stand in what we are, folks, because that's how we change the world, you know. But again, it's not going to come until you learn how to love yourself.
You know, oddly enough, that final point I don't disagree with even a little bit. I do think that people need to love themselves more and learn to appreciate things. I just don't know if really, like, if this felt like 3 different videos, like, smashed together. Like, honestly, though, it felt like a stream of consciousness rant, and then they just put a bunch of stock footage over it. So, subscribe. Okay, yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I don't know. This was extremely boring. What are the comments saying? When you cut out a man's tongue, it doesn't mean he was lying, but you're afraid of what he has to say. Okay? To learn who rules over you, simply find out what you're not to criticize. I mean, yeah. I guess that's kind of true. I mean, it's really like, you know, I'm 14 and this is deep, but sure. They don't want to wake up. Just want to see, like, this is the beginning of what is coming. What is coming? What are you talking about? What is Joseph? What is Joseph up to? What does he believe? Nice picture. Underground tunnels are very real. Here's the proof. Okay. I mean, I don't know what the fuck this guy's up to, but I don't know, man. I think this is just stowing the whole, like, anti-corruption kind of politics stuff. You know, like, it's just, I don't know. It's low tier, low effort bullshit. So whatever. I don't know. At the end of the day, that's that. I mean, I am extremely uninterested in this kind of dialogue. I'm much more focused on, like, actual, like, either policy prescriptions or, like, discussing specific ideas. Being against censorship is, like, that's low-hanging fruit, my dude. And having a 10-minute rant about it where the end result is we just need to love each other more is extremely unproductive. So, Godspeed. Thanks for sharing this to me. You know who you are. But that was an extreme waste of time, so fuck you for that. But, yeah. Much love to everyone, and,